That's all, and they're still undefeated, right?
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Town Council for Thursday, November 6th. And Councilor Dwyer, would you start the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor Dwyer. Okay, announcements. The town offices and transfer station will be closed on Tuesday, November 11th, in observation of Veterans Day. The council meetings, Thursday, November 20th at 7 p.m. here in the Matthew Thornton Room. Thursday, December 4th, 7 p.m., again here in the Matthew Thornton Room. And Thursday, December 18th, again at 7 p.m. Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The annual holiday parade and tree lighting ceremony is coming up on Saturday, December 6th. The parade will begin at 3 p.m. from the Commons Shopping Plaza at 515 Daniel Webster Highway. The parade travels down Daniel Webster Highway to Babuzik Lake Road and ends at Town Hall. Immediately following the parade will be the tree lighting ceremony with Santa Claus at the Abbey Griffin Park, which will begin approximately at 3:45. This event is organized by the Parks and Rec Department and the Merrimack Chamber of Commerce. For more information, please contact our Parks and Rec Department at 882-1046. The annual Badges vs. Hardhat Community Food Drive is underway. Drop donations of non-perishable items at the Police Department or the Public Works Department now through January 1st. All donations are delivered to local food pantries to help families in need of the holiday season. And I believe the Badges won last year, but not by a lot. It was close. It was too close to call until the last day. The Merrimack Police Department Citizens Police Academy accepting applications for the next session beginning in January. The Citizens Police Academy meets once a week on Wednesday evenings. For more information, please visit our website at www.merrimacknh.gov/police or contact our Community Service Officer, Rob Kelleher, at 424-3774. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Any comments from the press or public?
To the noise issue again and looking for a status report.
Okay, as you know, the town manager is dealing with that, and she has been out. And unfortunately, she's on vacation, but she's going to be back soon. I did receive Paul McCauley told me that she already has started dealing with it, but I know she has not called you yet. So you have not been forgotten.
Any idea when?
It's on her agenda to do. We're working on CIP. We're working on budgets. I would have to say within the next week or two. She's gathering information right now.
Yes, Dan.
Absolutely.
I wanted to say something to you, and I want to be honest because I think you are looking for answers. You know, there's a nitty gritty to life. You know, bureaucrats and lawmaking and agendas and all this kind of stuff. And you're welcome to come back every other week. But I just wanted to give you the real straight on what would have to take place in order for you to get relief. One of us, and only us 7, would have to volunteer to kind of set this thing up and get an ordinance, a noise ordinance in town. And I'm not speaking for anybody here. I'm not willing to cross that line and do it. It's an ordinance that is very rare in New Hampshire. We don't have, I think there might only be one city or town in all of New Hampshire that has one. So only speaking of myself, I would be against it because it's not that it's just complicated. There's just so many different things involving a noise ordinance and enforcement, et cetera. So I'm not going to go down that road. But that's your only relief. Our manager may come back with a report, but it really takes one of us to hold the torch for you and do that kind of thing. And it is a decision that I think most of us really aren't in favor of.
Well, I'll be very happy to light anyone's torch.
That's the only recourse you have is making a law happen. And I'm not sure the support is here in the whole town to do it. Then the other recourse is take the guy to court. civil court, claims court, because we've already looked into it with the police chief, and he's already done everything he can do. So I feel your pain. I've had neighbor issues too in town sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't get resolved. It is what it is, and I hate that phrase. But if you really want a law enacted,
Yep.
it takes the council to do it.
Well, that's the reason why I'm coming. I'm going to continue coming in here.
Come on in.
Right.
Hey, I don't blame you.
It's all right. Finley?
But I didn't want you to be left hanging, because I kind of thought
Yep.
maybe you're feeling that way. And all right, thanks.
Finley?
Actually, as well, I think that Eileen will in fact be getting in touch with Steve
Right.
when she's got information
Yeah.
for him. But there is another way. It's not just the 7 of us. There is a way you can
Petition.
collect signatures and put it on the ballot yourself. That definitely can happen.
No. Paul's
I-
saying no.
This board is the ordinance board. You're the ones who handle that. Non-money issues are not moved to the ballot according to the charter. Non-money issues come to the group.
Citizen, isn't that?
Dave, we don't have a citizen
initiative
initiative
petition
petition,
in
I
But it's more than,
No, you can, with, I believe it's 500 signatures, you can bring
Citizen
something to the
initiative.
ballot.
Right.
And
Absolutely
with
in our
1,500
charter.
signatures, you can get it repealed.
It's in our charter.
Okay, here's the expert, yes.
You
Councilor
do have the
Mann.
ability to do that with sufficient signatures. Either bring it here and we take care of it, or it gets put on the ballot. Or it can be put on the ballot.
It's not
See, and that's the
It's
kind of
not an either or.
information
Okay?
that we're waiting for the town manager to bring and be able to give to you as well.
And for the record, if you were to do that, if you got the signatures and you did the work, I'd always vote to put a question on the ballot. I'm very rarely would I say, oh, let's not put that to the people. I'm never scared of what the people say. So if you do that and you follow through on that, I'd support it.
I would too. So you have no more answers, but
I have no more answers. I know it has a drastic impact, not now because of the weather and all that there, but it has a drastic impact on our way of life. It has an impact on the value of my home. I've asked realtors the question of, with this situation, is there an impact? And I'm getting consistently, I will lose 25 to 30% of potential buyers. As soon as they hear the situation, they will walk away.
Don't tell them, never tell a realtor that.
I don't have to tell them, they can hear it. They can hear the problem. Right? It's not only my home. We have other places that are having the same problem with the same issue, just a different location. Right? And these people are afraid to talk up because they're afraid of the repercussions from their neighbors. You asked me a couple of weeks ago, or back in June, July, whatever it was that we first spoke, to have people contact you. Every single one of them said they're afraid to do that because of repercussions. I mentioned to them that this council will keep their names in private, right? And one of the comments I got was, yeah, just like the last time. So people don't want to speak up because they're afraid of the repercussions of their neighbors. It's a minor problem. It's something that's so easy to fix. All we have to do is fix it. Just say the word, the police department will take care of the problem.
But as explained, there is a process by which the police department have to be given the authority to do it.
Right.
And that's an ordinance, and Councilor Dwight has
Yep.
addressed that. And we need to be able to have the opinion of the town manager.
I'm looking forward to having a discussion with the town manager.
Okay.
Okay? Thanks for your time.
You're very welcome. Any other comments, press or public? There are no recognition, resignations, or retirements. With the permission from the council, I would like to move, and I've already spoken to people who might be moved as a result. New business, the Martell Field Concession Building renaming request. I'm going to move that from the new business to presently. Is everyone okay with that? I've spoken to the people from the fluvial erosion update, and they're okay with it as well. Okay? Why don't you come on up? And this has to do with town council to consider a request to rename the concession building at Martell Field after Officer Ed Payne. And supposedly, you're not Suzanne.
Suzanne's my wife. She's the
Okay.
better half.
Is it Mayotte? Is that correct?
It's pronounced Mayotte, yes.
Mayotte,
There you
okay.
So I'm just going to give you a little background from me real quick, just to help you understand why I'm doing this. I've lived in town for 30 years.
And you are?
I'm sorry. My name's Ryan Mayotte. I lived in town for 30 years. My mother still resides in this town. I was a police officer in town from 98 to 2000. I still work in law enforcement, and currently I'm also a state director for a softball association that has the privilege of using Martell Field during the summer, so I'm thankful for that. But I would like to put forth a proposal to rename the concession building at Martell Field after Officer Ed Payne. Ed was a well-known and respected member of the Merrimack community and a dedicated officer of the Merrimack Police Department who recently passed away of an illness. Ed also enjoyed playing softball in the Merrimack Men's League, where he also served as a board member. Softball was a time for Ed to get together with his close friends, play ball and socialize. Ed had an ability to bring people together and make lasting friendships. As Ed's illness progressed, he was unable to physically play softball anymore, but he still kept himself involved with the team and the softball community. In considering this proposal, please remember Ed's longtime, selfless, dedicated service to the Merrimack community and his love for softball. Thank you in advance for your consideration to make a permanent memorial site in honor of a man deserving of special remembrance, Edward Payne. Be happy to take any questions if you have any.
Just to double check, it did say renaming, and I went, is it already named? And apparently it's not named per se.
Correct.
So
There's
this
no
is the
current-
naming, right?
The
There's no
field
change.
itself is named Martell Field, but there's
Correct.
no current name to the building right now.
Correct. Okay.
Sorry.
And I verified that,
Thank
so.
you.
Yes.
No, so it's just become referred to as Martell Field?
Concession stand. There's no official
Oh,
name.
concession stand.
He's just asking to name the
Concession stand
not
only.
the field.
Oh, I misunderstood that. I didn't even realize.
Right? Am I?
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
The
Just the
field, I mean,
concession stand.
I felt, obviously, there's a gentleman, Joe Martell, who put up some money to have the field built years ago. And, you know, we contemplated the thought, but felt it was inappropriate to ask to rename a field. So there's no name to the concession stand, so we felt like that would be a good way to remember Ed.
Okay.
I would like to add, just real quick, that I know why not another officer or why not another gentleman who played in the softball league. I just think the situation is unique that he was both. He was a police officer and lived in town and served this town for a long time. He also loved to play softball and was at that field quite often. So I feel the uniqueness of the combination is the reason why we're asking for that.
Gotcha. Well,
I have a couple of questions.
absolutely. Counselor Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilor Flood, back in 2011, put forth, which was ordained by this body, a naming policy regarding facilities. Before I go into my talk, Ryan and Suzanne, I absolutely support this, so I don't want you to think I'm against this. I absolutely support
If I
this.
could, that's
Sure.
Ed's wife.
I'm sorry, that's right, I'm sorry.
That's right.
Nancy.
Nancy,
That's
I
okay.
apologize, Nancy. So I support this. But the thing that I'm looking at here is that under the procedures of letter C under section 1, it says if the town council determines or a request has been made, the town shall solicit suggestions for names. So it insinuates that there needs to be a process for naming this particular building. That the town I see Councilor Mayon looking over, and I'll defer to Tom because I know Tom is good with this sort of thing.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second?
Is that a motion?
I'm always for second.
You are good, Tom. You are good.
I like
Any
that.
discussion about that?
My 20 minutes of homework has just been squashed.
Nullified.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, all those in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Suspending the rules.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would move that the concessions building at Martell Field, the softball concession stand at Martell Field be renamed what was Edward's full name?
Sergeant Edward Payne.
That it be renamed Sergeant Edward Payne Concession Stand, and that the Highway Department be tasked with erecting a suitable sign that is befitting for Sergeant Payne in the concession stand.
Second?
Second?
Can you change that to name the concession stand instead of rename, since it's not named
Did I
at
say
this point?
rename?
That's
I
what I
didn't,
heard.
okay.
Okay, I apologize.
It's a
Yeah,
name.
Friendly amendment, that the concession stand be named the Sergeant Edward Payne concession stand, and furthermore, that the highway department be directed to erect a suitable sign that is befitting Sergeant Payne.
So a motion made by Counselor Boyd. Who seconded?
Dan, I believe Dan.
Seconded by Counselor Dwyer. Any discussion? Yes?
I was just going to say, it's befitting because in Suzanne's letter, she talked about how, you know, Ed was a well-known cop. I know Ed mentored a lot of the police officers, especially probably you yourself, and this was his way of being able to kick back and socialize afterwards. So I think it's a befitting tribute to Ed, and I'm sure he would probably get a kick out of it.
Finley, did you want to say anything?
I
Is that-
didn't know if, you know, as far as signage and everything, if they wanted to get together.
I would actually enjoy doing that, and if the highway department is able to do something, and we're also willing to raise money as part of this as well to help with that sign, so.
Okay.
Better still.
Yes.
Better still.
We like that.
Okay.
So whatever I need to do, meet with who, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this happen.
Well,
You should probably meet with the,
We generally haven't tasked the Public Works Department with something like that. The group that brings a thing forward usually does something like that, maybe some formal format we would prefer to go up there so that we don't have 65 different styles on a building. But we've usually left it to the individual groups to put something together like that. So,
Would you like us to
Maybe-
come up with something and present it to
Well,
somebody?
perhaps you
for
can work
approval?
with Eileen, so she can coordinate the town manager.
Perfect,
And then between the two of you, you can,
excellent.
I've got some. Of course, we haven't finalized the motion yet, but that's okay. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
I,
Okay, 6-0-0. And by the way, the previous motion was 6-0-0 as well, didn't it? And Lon Woods is not here. He's absent. Well, he is excused. I'm not aware of it.
Surgery the other day.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that. Okay, Lon Woods is excused. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so you're all set.
Thank you very much. I
And
wanna thank
again,
the board.
Paul, you can have,
Yep. I'm in contact with Brian's wife, so
you have contact information? Okay, excellent. Very good.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
You're very
welcome.
welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to do it.
thanks for bringing it forward.
You're welcome, Nancy.
Great idea.
Okay, now we'll get back to our normal agenda.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, first, the fluvial erosion update submitted by NRPC Senior Environmental Planner Jill Longvell to share results of the erosion study and provide the town council with an update on the hazard mitigation plan. It's all yours.
Great, thank you so much for having us, and I'm here with Sarah Siskavich, who's our GIS manager, and she was responsible for a lot of the mapping that went into this project as well. You all received a copy of the draft hazard mitigation plan in your packets, and we're not looking for you to take any action on the plan tonight. We're just here to discuss it with you. Your last plan was updated in 2010, and as you probably know, FEMA requires municipalities to update their plans every 5 years in order to maintain eligibility for federal mitigation grants. So your plan is still in compliance. I've been working over the past year with a hazard mitigation team that includes representatives from fire, police, public works, Merrimack Village District, community development to work on the update of this plan. The primary differences between your current plan and this update that we no longer include man-made hazards in the plan. That really is coming from a direction from FEMA. They want it to be exclusively natural hazards. In addition, we no longer including preparedness actions in the plan. Again, that's another directive from FEMA. So things like generators we had put in previous plans, and they're considering those preparedness. They want things that are actually going to prevent the hazards from happening. So we're focusing exclusively on mitigation. And then the final difference is that for this plan, we had a grant that came down through DES to include fluvial erosion hazard study. And that's just simply erosion that's caused by the wearing away from rivers. So that data has been incorporated into the plan. I'm going to hand it over to Sarah. She'll talk to you a little bit about the study, and then I'll wrap it up by talking about the next steps to get your plans adopted.
Thank you, Jill. So NRPC came to the town council in August of
Make sure your microphone's
sure-
on, please.
Okay, the light's on now.
There you go.
So NRPC came to the town council in August of 2013 to announce the start of the fluvial erosion hazard project and the hazard mitigation plan update. And now we're here essentially to bring closure, come full circle in that project. And as Jill mentioned, fluvial erosion is essentially the wearing away of the riverbank by flowing water. And it's a natural process, and it's most powerful during flood events. And we saw dramatic examples of fluvial erosion in north of us in the White Mountains during Hurricane Irene, and our neighbors in Vermont as well. So the project is funded by the New Hampshire DES through a FEMA pre-disaster mitigation grant. The data was just delivered in September 2014 after a very wet field season in 2013. And actually some field work was actually suspended during that summer because of unsafe working conditions, high water, et cetera. And in our region, the study analyzed river reaches in the Sauhegan and Piscataquag watersheds. There was a field component. There was also background research using topographic materials, aerial photos, and historic archives. And so one of the main deliverables of the study here is depicted on the map. There are shaded zones which are basically characterizing lands most vulnerable to erosion. So these zones are relative measures. They range from very sort of extreme, the extreme sensitivity being in the deep red color there. That characterizes areas that are already experiencing considerable erosion, and further erosion is likely to happen there. And at the opposite end of the spectrum, areas where there's very low sensitivity, rivers or streams are not likely to change at all. So that was one of the major activities of this project. And then another portion of the project, which is a bit more tangible, was the assessment of culverts, which in Merrimack there were 3 assessed. Culverts associated with bridges or through wetlands were not part of the assessment. The access road over Babusick Brook was rated as mostly, well, I'll just back up a little bit to talk a little bit about how those were rated. Culverts were rated on a scale of fully compatible, which meant there was a low risk of failure. Replacement was not expected over the lifetime of a culvert. When replaced, a similar structure is recommended. To the opposite extreme, which would be fully incompatible, at that culvert there's a high risk of failure, undersized or poorly aligned with the stream, and when replaced, a larger or redesigned structure is recommended. So of the 3 culverts assessed in Merrimack, the access road over Babusick Brook was rated mostly compatible. The Bean Road over Babusick Brook, yes, culvert was partially compatible, and then the Bedford Road over Babusick Brook culvert was mostly incompatible.
So again, all those results have been incorporated into your hazard mitigation plan. And it asks that you take a look at the plan. If you have any input on it, to please provide me with it by December 1st. I've also provided the plan to the hazard mitigation team. They're reviewing it as well. I did want to note while we're here that FEMA requires us to include mitigation actions in your plan along with the associated estimated cost in an implementation table. FEMA does not require that the town actually implements those mitigation actions as a condition for approval. So just because they're included in there, you see a dollar figure, it doesn't put the town on the hook for actually implementing it. It's just a requirement of the grant. So the way the update process works is that I'll take any input that I get, incorporate it into your plan, and then I'll submit it to FEMA on the 1st of December. FEMA will review it, determine whether it's met all of the criteria. When they decide that it has, they'll send us back what's called an approval pending adoption. At that point, it will come back to the town council. You can adopt it at a regular meeting. We'll send the signed adopted letter back up to FEMA, and then they'll issue a formal approval. And at that point, your plan is current for the next 5 years. So there's a couple rounds of back and forth, but it should be a pretty simple process. We never know exactly with FEMA how long it will take, but optimistic that it will get through the review without any substantial edits. We'd be happy to address any questions that you might have.
Yeah, any questions from anyone? It's very extensive. I didn't read every line, but
FEMA has a pretty long checklist of elements that have to be met in the plan, so do our best to make sure that they're all addressed.
and obviously, people who are involved with our mitigation have been involved with this.
Yes.
Fire department, so they are well aware of its contents.
Yes, we had a series of 4 meetings that went into putting this plan together.
Excellent. Yes.
Just for the
Dan.
members at home, so like we were visual, this is their report. It's a 98-page report, so a lot of work was into it, so we try to do our homework as best we can.
Sure, and there's a draft version of it on our website as well, so if anybody from the public wants to take a look
The
at it.
NRPC website.
That's correct.
Excellent, thank you, Dan. Yes, Bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jill, on page 58, you write in the report that there have been 14 earthquakes centered in New Hampshire. There have been no recorded earthquakes to date centered in Merrimack, however, one could occur. Are you saying that there are specific faults within Merrimack that are consistent where there could be a seismic shift where an earthquake could be centered in Merrimack?
No, but there aren't any identified faults, but it's not out of the question. FEMA likes you to cover your bases.
I understand what you're saying.
So anytime that there's even the possibility of the mitigation action to occur, you have to include language such as that.
If you can think of the improbable, it's probably probable.
Exactly.
Okay.
Tom?
Okay.
Yeah, I had thought that the Wildcat Falls area was considered to be a fault zone.
Yep.
I hadn't seen anything about that in my research, and we hadn't included it in previous plans, but it's certainly something that I could look into.
Our library now has a seismograph reader.
I did hear about that.
Yeah, well, that's good, because that tells us when it happens.
Well, that it did happen.
Correct, and how big it was.
How big it was. Yes, Bill?
Just 2 minor edits.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm the geek, I admit it. Page 4, David Dean's the president of the Aldermanic Board in Nashua, not Steve Bolton.
Okay.
And Thomas More is 1-0, not 2, on page 5.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
You can contact him for future references and
We'll put you on the hazard
Editorial.
mitigation team in 5 years.
editorial
no problem doing that.
consultation.
The question for staff. And I appreciate the work that the NRPC has done with this. The mostly incompatible culvert on Bedford Road, I know we had work done back when we had the quote-unquote 500-year flood on Bedford Road. Was that a temporary, because I know the culvert failed, was that a temporary replacement, or was that a?
No, when you deal with FEMA and getting money from FEMA, they'll only let you replace what's in the ground.
That's right, okay.
So we replaced what's in the ground. DPW has such went through and we did the Wire Road Bridge. And as the water flows down to the Merrimack River, Bedford Road, McGaw Bridge, Route 3, the 3 culverts they were talking about are all on the state's bridge aid plan over the next 3 to 5 years. So we're going to take care of all those
Right.
culverts within there to upsize them so that they become very
And
compliant
that's
with it.
where I was going with that.
But yeah, no, it's not a temporary fix. It is the fix. It's just when you deal with FEMA, they won't let you put anything bigger in. They'll only let you put what is in the ground to
Okay.
repair it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? None. Well, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Jill, Sarah, thank you.
and good luck with your approval.
Are you interested in keeping a copy
the-
of the
the
map?
approval.
We're happy to leave it if it's something that you might
Um,
use.
Sure.
There you go.
Okay, absolutely. We'll make sure Rick gets it.
Make sure you take it with you, Rick. Oh, there you go.
We can print extra copies.
They can fight over it. There he is.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to correct, I had forgotten, Lon Woods had told me. So I apologize for not remembering that. He had informed me. Okay, second, Bedford Merrimack Open Roll Toll Project Transportation Improvement Plan Update, submitted by NRPC Assistant Director, MPO Coordinator Tom Roach, to provide the Town Council with an update on the Bedford Merrimack ORT project with the TIP, Transportation Improvement Plan.
Here I am with my list of acronyms.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tim Roach.
That's all right.
I might have said it.
Well,
Sorry,
thanks
Tim.
for having me. I think I was last here sometime around early summer, or something, June or so. We were talking. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. We were talking about the potential widening and the engineering funds for the widening being put into the tip on the Turnpike. And at the same time, I think we talked about the 10-year plan process. And I sort of said, hey, you know, the writing's on the wall. The toll project is floating around the 10-year plan, and I know there were discussions about Continental Boulevard and Exit 11 and Exit 10 with you folks and DOT. Well, since that time, the 10-year plan was signed by the governor on August 1st, and as typically happens, the 10-year plan just sort of gets put over here, and the DOT focuses on those first 4 years that make up the Transportation Improvement Program. And we work with them on that to develop a regional version of that to make sure that the communities are aware of what's in there and that the community's desires and needs are being met, the NRPC communities. So around September and October, we were reviewing project information that was being proposed for the TIP. And I noticed the open road toll project, or the toll project in general, wasn't pushed down to me from DOT. So I started asking a few questions to find out what was going on. And after some additional research, they came back and said, well, it's not funded with federal dollars. Do you think it's a regionally significant project? Because if it's not funded with federal dollars and it's not regionally significant, it doesn't have to go in the regional tip. My reaction was, I think it's regionally significant. And at that time, I wasn't sure if they were talking about moving the project or keeping it in Bedford. Anyway, so I elevated the conversation to include Federal Highway just within the last few weeks, and they came back and concurred that they think it's a regionally significant project by their definition, and they define regionally significant as a transportation project that's on a facility which serves the regional transportation network and would normally be included in the modeling of the metropolitan transportation areas road network. We do the modeling. We would normally include a project that was taking a toll plaza from a standard configuration and changing it to open road tolling. So I think there's a pretty good agreement that it's regionally significant, which means it will go into our transportation improvement program. I've been assured, and DOT has sent, I have it via email, that the project is not moving from its current location. They plan to take the Bedford Toll Plaza as it is today and convert it into a facility that's similar to what you see in Hooksett. The timing on that right now looks to be in the range of 2016 to 2018 for construction years. So the Merrimack is included in the discussion because the taper of the project, as you sort of put the open road tolling in, as the road tapers back down to meet the existing alignment, it comes into Merrimack. So we're part of the conversation. But I just want to let you know at this point there's no plan to move it, which I think is probably good for most folks in Merrimack.
Most?
Well,
All.
no, not all. Had it moved, we might have had another toll booth taken down. So, I mean,
There's-
we'll never know. I mean, if they do what you're saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
That's fine. I mean, and that's true. What you're just, those conversations that were happening in the 10-year plan process, I think were related to that idea that
Right,
moving
might have
it
been.
in Continental
No, it's in the
Boulevard. But
plan.
what's that?
It's in the 10-year plan, that it gets moved from Bedford to exit 10,
I thought they took it out.
and then exit 11 is, provided they're gonna give us Continental Boulevard as is, and they'll take away the tolls on exit 11. Okay? And so,
Was it taken out? Because I thought it was taken out.
I thought it was.
I thought it was too.
Do you know?
In the signed version, I thought it was taken out as well. Yeah,
Pretty sure.
Okay.
that provision. So
the last time I looked,
Oh, this is going to be a good one.
but I
Yes.
must admit was before August the 1st, okay? I didn't see that change, so,
Okay.
I would appreciate getting copies of your emails from DOT that says that they're not gonna move it,
sure.
because we rarely get anything from them on things like this in writing.
Okay,
So if they don't move it and they do the open tolling in Bedford, then it's pretty much set in stone that it's done. They'll never, we got exit 12 out and that's probably
Right,
gonna be
well-
the last of it.
But see, it's Turnpike money that finances this,
Yeah.
okay? And that's contingent upon a toll increase at some point. All right? And that some point may be a ways off, given the mood of, of some of the people that got elected in this last session, in this last round of elections toward, first of all, the gas tax and any other increase that might come up, even though the tolling part is in the hands of the executive council, solely in the hands of the executive council.
But did you say it was already funded, that it's in the queue, so to speak, for 2018?
Yeah, 16 to 18, and
So money has already been allocated for it?
It
That's
appears
usually
that-
the only way it will get done.
the notes that they have in their plan say using existing toll revenue.
Huh.
So they're advancing this one, in that time frame because they believe they can afford it under the
Yeah.
existing revenue. And
But the bureaucratic wheels are all lined up already to have that project a go in a year and a half, they could start breaking ground?
that's what they're
Okay.
implying here. Yep.
Huh.
So
Finley?
If I may, Tim, what is the price tag of that? Do you know offhand?
Yeah,
18
the
million?
10-year plan has $18 million. In those emails that I have that I can share with you, the DOT is suggesting that they have updated estimates that could bring the project down to as low as 10 million. And I think even lower than that in some cases. But let's be realistic. These projects generally cost more than some of the early estimates. But 18 in the 10-year plan, and there's suggestions that it may be around 10 million with updated estimates. It's a significant investment either way. I mean, it's a lot of money in a.
Which is,
Since they built it twice already.
well, I was gonna say, that's my frustration with the whole thing. Hooks it, I thought was about $25 million, but they had recently, within the previous 5 years, renovated that whole thing, changed it all up. The airport access road remodeled, the Bedford tolls, and you would have thought that somebody had that figured out at some point.
Foresight.
And it's my frustration, which is why I'm against it. I'm against the move down here, and I'm against it in general because it's a colossal waste of money.
I mean, and I think the fact that we now have it in our transportation improvement program gives all of you and all the communities in the region a chance to really have a voice in it, whereas otherwise it would have been a little bit more difficult. It would have been you going alone or any community going it alone. At least you have the backing of 12 other communities to have the
Yeah.
conversation and say what you think.
When DOT came in to discuss the removal of, that would have been in July, they came in to talk to us about the removal of exit 12, the buildings and the infrastructure at exit 12, okay? And they pointedly raised the issue of moving the toll plaza down from Bedford to Merrimack. So, and here I've got the head of the Turnpike Division sitting at the table with us, and now well, I know there are other things going on,
Yeah.
okay? And, the real issue is, keep in mind the existing tolls. Okay, because this means that exit 11 stays,
Oh, yeah.
all right?
My lifetime.
Yeah.
That's
So,
yours.
yeah, you bet. Be careful.
Oh,
Just be careful.
He's really got a lot of spunk tonight, hasn't he?
Just,
with respect.
just, I understand. And I accept it in the spirit in which it is offered, okay? But,
The last thing I'll throw out there is I know the other members of NRPC, some of the other communities, representatives from Nashua and other towns have said that, in their opinion, they think the widening should go first.
Right.
As
Yeah,
opposed,
I do.
and that's
I
been
agree with that.
the position of the policy committee for NRPC. They'd prefer to see the widening happen
Yeah.
to get those bottlenecks out of the road
Absolutely.
before any new toll plaza is invested in it.
Or reconfiguration.
Yeah, or reconfigured, and they recognize that you really don't hit congestion at the toll, it's just south of the toll.
That's right.
right.
So I think that's the message that NRPC is going to send to
And that is
DOT.
regionally significant.
It is, definitely, and that's the message that I think they'll convey to DOT, and we'll see where that goes, but.
Very good.
So I totally concur with that.
Yes, Tom?
So is there any discussion at this point, or any time when there will be discussion about the need of this building? I wonder how they're gonna get their $10 or $25 million back. They're not gonna gain any more traffic because they've modified the toll.
Right, no, it's.
So, the revenue is the revenue, and they're gonna spend 25, maybe 15, maybe 10, who knows? How many millions of dollars to rebuild it yet one more time in the same place?
Right,
So
without capturing more revenue.
without capturing any revenue, and except if they raise the tolls, and then they make it a little bit easier for people to go through at a high speed. But I go through it every day, once or twice, and I don't, even when I'm looking at the traffic going the heavy direction on the other side, I don't see it back up at the tolls. So I
Really?
100% agree with you that the widening of the road has to happen before they need to spend a nickel on expanding the toll booth. They just finished expanding a few years back. And if there's any opportunity to discuss that, or to talk to them, or ask the question of how are you going to get that money back, I'd love to know about it.
There is opportunity. We've invited DOT or Turnpikes to come to the executive committee with NRPC on November 19th. I haven't had a response as to whether or not they're coming yet. And then, in general terms, we'll be releasing our transportation improvement program for public comment November 14th for a 30-day comment period, then a public hearing on December 3rd Wednesday, 17th or 19th, I can't remember. 3rd Wednesday of December, we'll have a public hearing on that. So that 30-day period, a lot of discussion can take place in the hearing as well in December. So there's opportunity there.
Yes, Dan?
Is that your opinion? Do you feel like, is that what you're advocating, and are you not, do you have the opportunity to advocate for that position? More importantly, is that how you feel? Do you feel the widening should be taking place before open road tolling at Bedford? Without putting word.
Personally? Or?
Yes, you personally, and professionally. Do you have a professional capacity in the reports that you're making that you can give your professional opinion on the matter? Are you being listened to?
Yeah, we could. I could. I drive it, so I see firsthand that the backup is the issue to the south of the toll plaza. The toll plaza isn't a congestion issue right now. But in terms of the process and me professionally, it's, I'm a technical service to the communities, and I provide them with information. If they ask my opinion, I can give that. But ultimately, it's their decision to, the voice of the communities are what we're trying to make happen. And I provide them with the data and information to make that decision. And the last time we talked about it, they had that opinion. So the policy makers at NRPC or the policy level say
That's what they're kind of preaching to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Might we want to consider, as a council, advocating, expressing our opinion?
In a form like a declaration of some kind.
Just as
A letter.
a letter of interest or a letter of,
Sure.
would that be,
You still do that?
We have two representatives going.
Right.
Tim Thompson and Kyle
They'll
Fox.
be at the
Okay,
they'll be at the
perfect.
Will
TAC
be
meeting.
there,
Yeah,
so
that's right.
we
perfect,
could
so
certainly convey our interests to
Yeah,
them
perfect.
and allow them to officially represent our position at that meeting.
Yeah. Great. Because that can, yeah, conveying our opinion
Sure.
might add a little bit more validation to it. Or not.
Or not.
Well, I think it'll help, and I mean, it'll spur some discussion for the other communities as well to weigh in.
Excellent.
Do you think we need to take a motion and memorialize that, or?
Do we need to, or just give our consensus to pass the word on to Tim and Kyle that
I think it's
Council
pretty
feels-
clear that you gave your consensus, but if anybody wants something specific from the council to be addressed, they can read that into the record. If you want to send it to Eileen, and Eileen will move it to the Tim or Kyle on that, but it's pretty clear of how
Thank you.
you guys feel.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Any other
Thank you,
questions or
Tim.
comments?
Thanks, Tim.
No. Okay, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Just pay attention to the vehicles miles traveled and the number of vehicles that use the road, because as they go down, so do the tolls,
Right,
okay?
it's true.
So they could change their mind once again about what they want to do and how they want to do it.
Very good.
Well,
Okay.
I-93 is down 16,000 trips a day,
What from? Why?
because people are driving fewer miles.
Literally just the sequence.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if there was another rationale. I didn't know.
Well, there's probably something that had to do with the economic conditions over the last 4 or 5 years.
Gotcha.
Okay, there's certainly part of that. But in general,
It's not
Right.
like they're going a different route or something like
right.
that.
And the other thing is, even though they may have passed a increase in the what's known as the gas tax, okay, if you just drive around and pay attention to what's driving around you on the road, there's a lot more smaller cars out there. It's really noticeable now. So, you know, and even though that doesn't pay for the turnpike,
affects
it
the
certainly is a
gas.
factor.
When you drill down on the data, like when you've heard it over before, New Hampshire's getting older, the demographics older, our retirements are up, retired people drive less. That's just one piece of that information pie, and that's something I just remembered about the demographic reports that have been coming out about New Hampshire, and that's just another,
Which would impact what you're talking
yeah.
about.
20% of the elderly do not have driver's licenses.
You're just a vast, I don't know. Okay, as we progress.
Moving right along.
Moving along. There's no public hearing. Do we have any legislative updates? Any state reps here? No. Yes?
He's a state rep-elect.
State rep-elect, congratulations to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm here at this time of year. As you know, there's not much going on, but certainly I'm willing to be available anytime to any of you. And I'll try. We don't have current committee assignments, but I think we will not have somebody on municipal and county this year, so I will try and watch their bills and bring those to your attention. Other than that, anything, give me a call.
And just for the record, it's elect Representative Christensen.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Town managers report. Anything, Mr. McCalley?
Yes. The annual holiday party was held on Friday, October 24th. It was a tremendous success with more than 600 people in attendance, and the tricycles/bicycles was a big hit.
Oh, good.
The Merrimack Police Department wants to remind the citizens that the winter parking ban goes into effect November 15th from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. There is no parking on town streets. Let's all do our part to keep the roadways clear and vent the bad weather so Public Works can properly clear the roads and treat the surfaces. Tax bills are in the process of being mailed out and are due back to the town Monday, December 8th. Our tax rate is $24.09. This is up 19 cents compared to last year. Residents with questions related to their tax bill should contact the assessing department at 603-424-5136 if their questions are in regards to assessments, exemptions, credits, billing addresses, or abatements. For tax payment questions, please call the Town Clerk Tax Collector's Office at 603-424-3651. I also want to update when I said that the petition article, yes, they can still do a petition article, but as it relates to a non-money issue, it has to come through the town council to be put on the warrant. It's not a direct, if you get 500 signatures, a direct to the.
We have to vote.
You have to vote to bring it forward, whereas a money article, goes directly to the warrant, and the town council does not have a vote on a money article. Where it is a petition or an ordinance, the town council has a vote whether or not to take that up in a meeting setting such as this, or put it in front of the whole community for a vote.
Gotcha.
Okay, I just wanted to reiterate that
Clarify.
in reading what the charter.
Thank you. Okay, all done, huh? Okay, there is no consent agenda. We'll start with old business. 5 John Lane tree removal request, follow-up from the 9/25 Town Council meeting, submitted by Paul McCallie. The Town Council to be presented with the findings and recommendation received from the town's forestry consultant resulting from a site walk through the town-owned parcel 4C/255 with response to the tree removal request previously discussed during the September 25th Town Council meeting. Paul.
Thank you. As the town council requested, I made contact with the town forester. We walked the property. One of the questions that arose at that meeting is, do we know why, when we did the last auction, why the property was held? And there was one little note that said potential athletic field usage. This property sits across the street from the Martell softball field and Tim Gibson fields from baseball and soccer fields. This parcel sits across the street on Atherton Road.
If I may.
Yes.
Tim Tenhay reminded me at the Conservation Commission meeting that was designated in his, that overarching plan he put together, field development potential, as a potential softball field.
Yes. So it was held because of recreation softball field purposes. That being said, I walked the property with Mike Powers. It's 6.5 acres, give or take. Why Mr. Powers of Bay State Forestry said that this is a small project for commercial loggers. The potential is great because there's some pretty nice growth trees of 100 to 125 feet. He did a quick walk around of the property and saw that he believes that the town can make between $1,000 and $3,000 by doing a harvesting. It's a little late in the season to go out to bid for a harvesting now. Most of the guys are trying to clean up what they have. And he said we could do it if the snow doesn't fly. But the ground, he thinks, can handle a spring cleanup, early spring, and he thinks that if we go out at that time, the loggers would be more hungry to get their operations up and running after a couple of months of being shut down, to get their crews out there, to get their equipment out there and things of that sort. So that's with the potential of $1,000 to $3,000 depending on the timber market. It's mostly pine. It's mostly good pine. There are a couple of instances where he said some of the pine that would be taken would just be to clean it out because it's dead or what have you. Also, he mentioned that with a project like this, the way the project is and the way the property lies, because of the roads, John Lane and then Wildcat Falls Road, there's houses on Wildcat Falls that this property backs into on that road going down. And then John Lane, there's the two houses there. He said that when they do a project like this, sometimes the neighbors come up and approach the guys and say, hey, could you take this tree down? Hey, take this tree down while you're here. Take this tree down while you're here. And he just wanted to, if the council is going in this direction of doing the harvesting project, he just wants some kind of clear, concise, these are the trees that are marked, I'm sorry, that's it. Or, yeah, we can take up to XYZ your property line, but we can't go into your property. Because it's liability for them and liability for us if they drop a tree and it falls the wrong way and hits something because, you know, they thought it was gonna fall one way and it's another. This kind of logging though would not be done by, you know, the guy in a chainsaw cutting the tree. This would be by, the big clamps and cut and drop. Kind of what they did over here with the courtyard that, you know, they hook them and they could do that basically. He says in the morning they would have most of the trees taken down and put, and then they would log them out after that.
You said about 50 trees?
Yeah, I went back, the gentleman who owns 5 John Lane is here tonight also. But when I went back and looked, he had his property surveyed. And the back surveying stakes, it appears to me that all the trees are on town property. And we counted roughly around 50 trees in the area, 30 to 50 trees in the area that would have to come down. And they would be all on town property.
I had asked the question, sometimes the forester will suggest cleaning up just for the health of the forest.
Right.
Was there any discussion on that?
There was some discussion about that, but it's not a dense forest. It isn't like you're walking tree into tree into tree. It's pretty much, there's some trails in there that the kids have made, things of that sort. So it's not like, it wasn't like Wasserman Park when did that project where the trees were all closely clumped together. It's not gonna. But when you get a 125-foot tree, if you take that down, the undergrowth will start growing up again with it. So, you know, that's part of the discussion.
That's why the money was so low. It was only $1,000 to $3,000.
Yeah.
That's why the money was low too, because it was only $1,000 to $3,000 worth to the town, which isn't much, obviously.
Right.
Yes, John, go ahead.
So is this harvesting project the entire 6 acres, or
Yep.
just the 50 trees
Nope.
behind the gentleman's land?
This will be the whole project.
Okay.
The
And
whole-
they're not clear cutting it, they're
No,
only taking
they're
out
only
selective trees?
Correct. It's a selective harvest there.
Now, so how would it impact behind this gentleman's house? Would it take out all of the ones he wants, or would it just take out the selective harvested ones?
I asked Mike to just look at taking, you know, he looked at the trees and he said, you know, he's got a couple in that group that I would have left if I was doing a selective cut down by there. But it's maybe 10 trees total that I would have left. But if the council so desires this and says, yeah, do it, he could go one way or the other on them. He would have left them, but to take them down is not going to be that much of a big item. There is one other thing. As you come off of Atherton Road onto John Lane, and Joey drives right there, as you come up, there's a little bit of a dip in our property. And even though it's not showing on the maps as being wet, when I walked it that day, I cut through to get back to John Lane where we parked as Mike continued to walk up through up to Wildcat, and it was wet. It wasn't like soaking wet where I sunk to your knees, but you could tell the ground was squishy and spongy and things. So there is some wet down there, and there wasn't a lot of trees in that area anyways. And when I talked to Mike, I said, you got to stay away from that area. He's like, yep, we'll stay away from the area right down by John Lane, besides having maybe a landing area over there for some of the other trees.
Thank you. Well, what's the pleasure of the council? We have a request to allow to cut down approximately 50 trees. And I'm sure there's pros and cons, which we should probably discuss. Anybody want to start?
Well, I would move to authorize the timbering project.
Do we have a second?
I would second.
Okay. Motion made by Councilor Mahan, seconded by Councilor Dwyer. Discussion. Yes.
I think it
Dan.
was a simple request. We did what we said we were going to do, which was to have it checked out by a forester, and I feel like we got enough information from our management team that it works, and I'm not gonna sweat an extra 10 trees being taken down in the project for also like personal use. You could say one personal landowner would like to know, hey, instead of leaving 5, could you take the rest? in the scheme of things, I just don't think it's a big deal. So I'm in favor of it.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah,
Tom, yes. Tom Mahan.
the other opportunity that this presents is the possibility of an additional athletic field. Tim also told me that the sand over there, it's pretty sandy soil over there. He said, he doesn't know whether or not it's useful to anybody, but, it might be. I don't know that we'd want to go to that extent to do that, but certainly based on the, we may have to come up with some alternative to what's on O'Gara Drive, and that would be a potential place that we might develop another recreation facility to stay within the parameters of the grant that we got in 1973 or 1971, whatever it was. Okay, so
Did you just not say tennis courts? For the record?
I said O'Gara Drive.
Okay, I was wondering if there was a hidden meaning in there somewhere. He still has a pretty straight face there. I was just wondering if that's what that was.
I was trying not to.
I just want clarity.
Charge the conversation.
Fellow counselor, just looking for clarity. I'm with you. That's fine.
Okay.
Another good reason for the lot to be taken in that way. So.
Finley, did you want to? No? Go ahead. I'll wait.
As far as doing something with it, I don't know that we're prepared. I think it's a nice idea, and we ultimately will be doing something with it. But for this year, I don't know that we're prepared to do that.
I'm not saying that we are.
Yeah, but
It's not my intent.
right, and fair enough. I think I was just saying that, just for the sake of saying it, I suppose. But I was wondering, in fact, is when this project's done, stumps will remain, but brush will be cleared up, or is it going to look like the tornado went through?
It won't look like a tornado went through. I cannot guarantee 100% of the brush will be taken out and you can eat off the ground in there. It's whatever they can get with the grapples and things of that sort. Right. If it looks, it could be the same kind of deal with Wasserman. There could be a pile of all the small stuff they can't get with the grapple to put through the chippers and things of that sort for nature. And they like doing those kind of piles where the squirrels and the chipmunks and whatever else can get into and have their nest and make their nest. So it won't be that you can eat off the ground, but it'll be cleaned up. And if we don't like how it's cleaned up, we'll have them come back.
The reason I ask is, and I know in the long term it works out very well. And I'm thinking of Greater Woods that they did a big clear selective cut there, and it absolutely looked like a nightmare for a while. And in 10 years, I'm sure it's going to be
3 years.
Great. Well, I saw it at a couple-year mark, I think, but it does take a little while for things to grow up and the decay to happen on the branches and things that are strewn all around the place. The difference with Greater Woods is obviously it's a bigger chunk of land versus 6 acres, and that's why I was really wondering that, because well, I know Don's interested in having those few trees for all the needs that he has planned. The other neighbors as well, will be seeing that. So I just wanted to be sure that it would be in relatively good shape when the project was completed.
As good as to be expected when you're doing this.
Okay.
I'd like to disagree with the motion for the following reasons, with all due respect. Two main issues. One is when the gentleman purchased the house, the trees were there. So it's not a matter of something changing and not his having the knowledge. And the second thing is, I'm rather concerned about setting a precedence. Why would not the neighbor next door or abutting a different piece of conservation land with a similar kind of request, they would have the right to have the similar kind of request. And I know the part of the argument be, well, we can deal with individual requests, but I think we'd have a harder time saying no to that, having set this precedence. And that's why I'll be voting against this motion. I really have concern about that. Tom, and then Dan?
Well, I don't know that I have a definitive thought on that, one way or the other at the moment, but having had the forester go out there and suggest that a selective cut would be in order and that there's value in there, even though it is a small piece of property, and having talked to them when they did Greater Woods and stuff like that, and realizing that it will look bad for a while, because you can't go back in there with equipment and not have it look bad, but it will overgrow in a couple of years, and I think it's probably a lot less than 10, and it'll look just fine. I suspect the town could be better off getting what little money we can at no cost to us, having that selectively cut so that it's maintained and managed well, and if we do need to go in there to make a athletic field or something, that's that much less trees that have to come out and that much better area to start working with. So I'm tending to think it's a great idea to go ahead and do it. It's advantageous that it'll help somebody who appreciates it, and I suspect we could have another neighbor come in and say they don't want any trees taken down. But from a town perspective, managing and maintaining that property in a good growth condition is what I think this is going to end up doing, plus a couple of maybe 10 trees extra.
But the motivation wasn't to go to see about the health of the selective cutting. The motivation was our request to go ahead and look and see what would be involved. It wasn't stimulated by, let's look at selective cutting, making some money, and maintaining the health of the forest. The motivation for him to go out was a result of this specific request.
Yeah, but I thought when we sent him out, it was to look at the health of the property and see if a selective cut was appropriate. That was my understanding, that we weren't going to go out there and look to see if taking trees down for the neighbor was a good idea. I mean, I only ever thought we were going to look at it to see how we could handle the property, and if it didn't make sense to do selective cutting in there, that we wouldn't recommend doing any cutting. But it seems like from the report that the forester seemed to think that that was an appropriate motion to make or direction to take with that piece of property at this point, that there's sufficiently grown trees to have value that could pay for itself to help maintain that property at the same time. And it makes sense to go ahead and do that. The fact that it helps an individual out, I think, is sort of a bonus.
Anybody else?
And
Yes, Dan.
I would try to change your mind by not to be afraid of the precedent, only because this is near the highway department and the athletic fields that are already there. It's our town-owned land. The next person that comes in, it's going to be a completely different circumstance. I think it's okay to open it up to the future and not be afraid of it, because every parcel is different. The next parcel may have a neighbor with a really good reason why he would come to us and give an argument to say, please don't do that, and then we would weigh it. I don't think it binds us in the future in any way whatsoever. I think this type of situation is always going to be unique to those just because of geography. Yeah. And so this one's giving us an opportunity to look around and go, yeah, this is almost a no-brainer. There's nobody else. There's no complaints from any other neighbor. Oh, please don't do this for these reasons. So I wouldn't be afraid of the future whenever that next request comes, because we have the right to listen and to have some common sense to.
Yeah. You can see the light bulb going on over. Okay, any other discussion? Tom?
I would, however, suggest that we wait till spring, that we not rush into this, and that in itself would give neighbors a chance to respond if they should care to, since the discussion of actually doing something is coming up right now. That may not suit the neighbor, I don't know, but.
I think he had said he wasn't going to do anything till spring anyway.
For me, it was going to be next, probably summer.
Right.
Okay.
Right, so that was.
So I would wait till the springtime to pursue it.
Yes, Bill?
I'm really not concerned about the precedent. I'm actually concerned about the optics, because we're going to go in there, we're going to clear cut, for the lack of a better term.
Well, it's not.
That's not a good term.
It's a huge difference.
You're going to go in there and you're going to cut it and you're going to leave it, and it's going to be a blight for the people in the neighborhood that have to look at it. It would be another thing if we were going to build a softball field in there where we were gonna go in, cut down the trees, clean it up and build a
That's a
ball
clear
field.
cut. That's taking out stumps and the whole 9 yards. That's completely different what this is.
Then I used the wrong term, I apologize. I think that the way that it's being presented right now, I have a lot of trouble with. Because the people in that neighborhood will have to look at that.
Well, you're making it use the word blight. That's not blight.
What do you
Is
want
the
me to call
dog
it?
park,
Pick
is the
a-
dog
pick a
park
word.
blight?
Excuse me?
Is the dog park blight?
No.
All right. Then that's what it is. Blight's a pretty serious word. If you look it up, blight's,
Well,
ghetto, trash, a dump.
You're gonna
That's
go
not
from,
gonna
you're
be
gonna go from
attractive.
Broken
trees.
windows, that's not.
You're gonna go
That's
from
not gonna be attractive
trees
for a little
to stumps and brush.
We
It's
had
gonna
a
go
selective
from- It's
cut.
gonna go from aesthetically pleasing to something that's not.
We have a major selective cut in town right now if you want to drive by and make an opinion. It's on Woodward Road. They did 60 acres of it, of a selective cut. And it's the street I live on. There's nothing wrong with it. It looks fine. So look for,
There'll be trees there. It's
there's
never
all
gonna
kinds of
clear
trees.
cut.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between a select cut and a clear cut
No,
to
I
build a
under-
baseball field.
I understand the nuance.
So-
I understand the nuance.
Okay, but they're not 50 trees together. It'll be an open space.
That's right.
Okay.
And 6 acres is a pretty decent sized lot.
Yeah.
It's probably this whole town complex is about 6 acres. I mean, visualize 50 trees coming down, it's not that much.
A lot more than 50 trees are coming down. Those
No,
50 are
50
just
is-
behind this guy's
Oh, right.
house.
But
Any other comments?
Just a
Finley?
thought, the project will be waiting for a while. I think that's good, because I do think that neighbors should should understand that this is gonna be happening. Not that we
we
would
don't
even
know.
have to, but I think it would be the right thing to do.
Do you want to make that part of the motion somehow?
Is there a motion?
Well, do you need to have that in the motion to notify neighbors?
I could do that by consensus if that's what the council,
Okay, so
if
we-
you want to roll that into the motion, that'd be even great.
Whoa, wait a minute. Are you going to, if you
Yeah,
notify
you would have to notify
them
them
in
before,
some way like this, does that then say that they are going to be able to come in here and
Correct.
demand that you change your mind?
Right.
Okay, because you're essentially saying to them, unless you object, we're gonna go ahead with this. Is that the intent of why you're notifying them?
no, but I wouldn't be afraid of the intent of feedback, but you notify the abutters, and if someone wants to come in and say something, we'll listen, and I don't know where the harm is that. So we do that, okay. Maybe we'll hear something that changes our mind and we stop. I don't know. I can't predict the future. So, but the right thing is to notify the abutters, and if people have a problem with having a select cut, we'll hear from it, and we'll go from there. Like Tom said, it's not for the spring. We have several months ahead of us to put our ducks in order and hear from people in the neighborhood if they have a beef about it.
And if you wanna see a clear cut, come to Natticook Road, down the hill from my house and Tom's house,
Oof, yeah.
I used the wrong term.
where they
You
just
used the
took
wrong-
3 acres out.
Yeah.
That's a lot of trees.
Yeah,
It was a lot, yeah.
they've been there for 2 weeks.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those against, nay?
Nay.
Nay. Okay, so it's 4-2-0, negatives, Harrington and Boyd. The motion was made by Mahon and seconded by Dwyer. Okay,
2 questions
go right ahead.
for clarification. We notifying the neighbors in a letter from the town manager stating that we're gonna do this project of a selective cut in the area. That's my first question. Second question is, what happens if people come up and say, I would like more trees taken down that are on town property, but
They'll have to
above
do
my
the same
property?
request as he did.
You mean that wasn't considered when the forester went around the lot?
He considered it, but, you know, if somebody comes up and says, you know, you're taking down this tree and this tree, I want you to take down these other.
It's our
5
property.
They'd
Okay.
have to come back
So
and
the
ask
answer
us.
is no.
All right, I got that
Me.
answer.
Yeah.
I got that answer. Okay. The first one about the letter.
I think it should just be, and it doesn't have to go out immediately, but before the project's gonna begin, say there will be a select cut happening around the month of May, whatever.
Would be probably
Just
more
notifying
March,
that it's
yeah.
gonna be happening.
It should probably be mailed to. Probably should be mailed to them and not left,
Yeah.
folded up in their mailbox, or on their mailbox, in the rain.
Or snow.
Hmm? Or snow.
Who would have made that delivery? On your
Okay.
way home, Paul? You?
Did you have a question you wanted?
Come up
You
and-
have to come up to the
Yeah.
microphone. And just state who you are first, please, just for the
Yeah,
record.
Don Turner, 5 John Lane. Just when you send the letter out for the abutters, a lot of times how you word it can make a huge difference. Just like even you talked about, you know, blight, you know, clear cut, and just be, you know, very specific that this is a select cut and there will still be woods out there.
It's reasonable.
We understand.
It's a reasonable request.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, all set? Okay, let's move on to the next highway garage discussion. Let me preface this
Another
with a
Leighton
little preview. Yeah. During the review of the 2015-16 budget schedule that we discussed on October 3rd at the town council meeting, I requested that this be put back on the agenda again because there was discussion back and forth. I've reviewed the minutes, and just to refresh everyone's memory, it all started back on September 11th when a motion was made and carried, made by Councilor Koenig and seconded by Councilor Dwyer, to proceed with the intent to place the issuance of bond for the highway garage on the ballot in April. Okay? Which is finally interestingly worded, intent to place. So that could be. But in the last meeting, there was discussion about should we go for a capital reserve versus doing the bond.
During the budget talk.
Right, during that talk. And I said, why don't we just hold off and put it on tonight's agenda? So it is on the agenda. So I think we need to do a little bit more clarification. Paul's received made some more information available as well.
Could we take a 3-minute council break? I grabbed the wrong folder. I'm sorry.
I'd like to be able to make it, oh, sure.
Recess. for a couple minutes.
Recess at
Can we talk
8
amongst ourselves while you get it?
At 8:21 for 5 minutes.
Right.
5 minutes. Okay, let's return to session at 8:27. Okay, Paul, you got the right information now?
Yeah, I got the right information. I'm
Okay.
sorry about that.
So I had asked Paul to pull some information together regarding tax rate implications for bond versus the 500,000 capital reserve fund possibilities, just so that we have some information to decide. My hope is that we come to some sort of decision tonight. Now, we don't have to make a decision, Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong, till January, to make a decision really about putting on the ballot, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have to have so many, a month or so before the deliberative session.
But we had established a,
There's a specific subject matter that we have on our schedule that deals with bonds or notes.
Okay.
And that's usually something that we cover in the last meeting of our budget
budget.
of our budget review. So that's
Okay.
what,
Still at the
January
end.
the
Toward the end of
23rd
January.
or something like that.
February 12th is when we have to do that, it looks like.
Yeah, February 12th is when you have to have the
council meeting
public
is when we have
hearing
to talk about
for it.
any bonds. or-
We'll be talking about it in the January,
End of
January
Jan- end of
26th.
January.
Is when we have to,
Right,
to make a final decision.
right.
Okay, so you can present, and also, is there any more word of volunteers for that committee?
The committee had one member from the community that has sent in interest of being part of that committee. Kind of reached out to the gentleman that I know. He reached out to his contacts in the area. They were hesitant to do something because of potentially going away to warmer weather. They're retired, so they may be going to warmer weather, and they didn't want to commit and say, we'll do it, and then all of a sudden say, sorry, I can't do it anymore. I'll be in Florida for 6, 8, 12 weeks, when really the push is on to be part of this. It's a tough time for some of the retirees in the winter months that might be going south for the winter. I have a sheet here that was handed to me by one of the gentlemen. I'll just take one and pass it down. And basically, this talks about a 4-prong approach: the town, having an architect, having a construction manager, and having a volunteer committee. And what you can see is, it's what's on the bottom is the volunteer committee, and I just wanted to show you this, is what's on the volunteer committee, and how they are in the pre-design phase, the pre-bond phase, the bond campaign phase. Then after the bond gets passed, basically, they're out of the picture until the ribbon cutting and the place is open. So this is, this was given to me by a construction manager who has done several projects in bonding throughout the state and other communities, and he says this is a good document to look at, but I just wanted to give you that information. Want to clarify a couple of things. We have 2 bonds that are still outstanding. One, the last bond payment is due in 2018, and that's Greens Pond land acquisition. The other one is the drainage bond, and that comes due in 2013. The Greens Pond,
When?
2023.
I was gonna say 13, that's good.
Yeah, it's already done. No, that's when we started. It was 2013. It was a 10-year bond. Greens Pond is about $300,000 a year is what the payment is. And the drainage bond's about $150,000 a year. We talked about a capital reserve fund and doing a capital reserve fund versus doing a bond for the $3.3 million. By doing a capital reserve bond for capital reserve fund for 6 years, and then bonding the remaining portion, what would need to be bonded. What would happen is that if we put in an average of $500,000 for those 6 years, that would be $3 million. I used a simple cost of construction of an inflation factor of 5% per year. Over those 6 years, the cost would be about $4.2 million. So if you subtract the 4.2 versus the 3 million that we put in to the capital reserve fund, you roughly still have to bond about $1.2 million to build the facility as it stands now. In doing some of those items, if we did this and we did the capital reserve for 6 years, in 3 years, the Greens Pond bond would be paid off. And if you go 6 years from 2015, you'd have 3 payments left on the drainage bond. Roughly around $475,000 would be left on the drainage bond with interest. For those 3 years, that you'd be doubling bond payments over those 3 years for, on that. By comparing the bond versus funding, if you put $500,000, like I said, that would be $3 million. Break even would be having to put $250,000 into the capital reserve fund for those 6 years. And when I talk about break even, the total cost, if we went out to bond tomorrow, based on the numbers that I received, and this is over a 20-year bond because those are the numbers that our New Hampshire Bond Bank had. Cost would be about $5.4 million for interest and interest principal. If we did $500,000 and then bonded the rest 1.2, we'd actually only spend about $5 million, saving approximately $426,000 worth of expense to the taxpayers if we did a capital reserve fund for 6 years at $500,000 and then bonded the 1.2 for the remaining 20 years. And I was shocked too, and I reran the numbers 3 times.
Tom?
So,
Tom Koenig.
Paul,
He needs to interrupt just for a minute.
I'm vehemently opposed to a capital reserve fund, just to get that out on the table and so you know where I'm coming from. But can you tell me what, if we bonded for 20 years, what would be the annual payment for the first couple of years?
Yeah, and that's also what I looked at. The annual payment for the first couple of years would be,
Ignoring the first year, which is
just the
low.
interest payment, is 10 cents.
No, the payment.
Oh, the payment?
You're saving $500,000 in the capital reserve. Would you be paying $500,000 in a bond?
You'd be paying around $300,000 in the bond.
In the bond.
In the bond.
So you're not going to get the highway garage, and you're going to charge almost twice as much to put it in a capital reserve fund. I just don't see any way I could possibly sit here and with a straight face suggest to the people of the town of Merrimack that they should put $500,000 into a bank account and still not have the highway garage, as opposed to bonding it and only costing $300,000 for the first several years and going down from there
just to
over a 20-year
clarify-
period. Now, I understand that bonding it and interest is going to cost more over that 20 years. But we don't have $500,000 to put in a capital reserve fund right now without dramatically increasing the tax rate on people. I just couldn't begin to support that.
The reason I asked Paul, and I asked him to do that, is that was part of the discussion during the last meeting.
Right.
That was brought up. So I said, why don't you pull the figures together so that we know exactly? So just to let you know, I'm the one who directed him to do that.
Absolutely, I understand that. And I'm not beating on Paul. I'm just,
Okay.
for
All right, Jeff.
the sake of the argument, the discussion.
I understand.
We didn't have a discussion last time. Several people mentioned it.
That's right.
And I
why we
refrained from
tabled it.
discussing it because I didn't think it was a discussable item at the moment.
Getcha.
It's clearly a discussable item now.
That's correct.
And there's no way I'm going to support it.
Okay.
And,
Yes.
and for that fact, it would be 10 cents. It'd be 10, for those first 5 years, taking out the first year, the tax rate impact would be 10 cents.
This is for the bond.
So this is for the bond. However, your first 6 years on the capital reserve fund using the current value we have, it's 17 cents
So that's another reason why it's unreasonable. Yeah.
on that.
Dan, you had a question?
Yeah, I was going to say real short, but I know it can't be short. There's so much to
Not
say.
tonight.
No, but I love this subject. We all do. This is an important subject for all of us. We have a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it over the last couple of years. So that being said, I'm going to kind of try to concise my thinking here, but it feeds off of last time we talked, and I'm behind Tom all the way. And I even had talked to Eileen on the phone when she got back a few days earlier about I would not be willing to put $500,000 a year into capital reserve fund. Everybody knows at this table I'm for a new highway garage. So that being said, because it was woven with our budget talks coming up, what are we going to do about the highway garage? So number one, I'm against capital reserve account for it. So where do we go from here? I would like to persuade all of you to put it on the ballot again. And here's my reasons why. We need an answer. I don't think I can put $1 away on the place until I know where are we going with it. And I think it's in our interest to know where we're going with it as fast as we can. And if we can't get the supermajority the second time around, the second bite of the apple, then we have an automatic green light for Plan B. And Plan B means we know the gas canopy's coming up. That's the start. We blow out a wall. We put in some new locker rooms. Number two, cruisers, and I'm just flying off the top, right? We take all the cruisers, so there's less mechanic. We make the building safer. We buy some paint, but then it's instead of a $3 million or $4 million building, which was in the cards of what we recommended, but that recommendation was rejected. then we go to Plan B and we do the right thing. And we all know how bad the place is, so it's on us to do the right thing. And again, so what that means is we need to do the right thing as fast as possible. Not wait 6 years, not wait for the school board, because, yeah, we're all in this together. They're going to want their superintendent building. They're going to want it. Well, if and when they do, what about us? Oh, so we don't put it on the ballot this year, and maybe they'll put theirs on or not, and then maybe they want to put it relying on other folks. We shouldn't have to rely on other folks. It's us 7. So we know how bad the building is. I say, let's go put it back on the ballot. Let's cross our fingers. But if it doesn't fly that way, then we go to Plan B and we do what needs to be done.
Good argument, Tom.
Yeah, what's the magic in $500,000? The number. No, what's the magic of the number? $500,000. Why $500,000?
Because in 4 years you'll have $2 million. So in 2 years you'd have accumulate. So you're getting closer. So maybe you only have to. So maybe it was a selling point to only bond $1 million, or borrow, bond or borrow less money because you saved up over 4 years.
That's
not so much
That's
of a
what we
bite.
talked about.
Right, but it takes just too much money to save up. $500,000 is way too much to put away.
Anything less than $250,000 that we would have to be putting into a capital reserve fund to make this worthwhile.
To make it worthwhile.
Would just prolong it longer and longer and longer. The cost of not doing business or not doing a bond, so to speak, in building it is about $165,000 in a year, up between $165,000 and $200,000 per year because of inflation on the construction. So that's
So we're talking
why
3.5 to 5 cents on the tax rate for that
we are just
difference.
Yeah, about 5 cents, 5 to 6 cents on the tax rate.
Yeah.
Finley?
Well, I agree with Dan and Tom about capital reserve fund. I believe capital reserve fund should be saved for maintenance costs. Our Scott packs, the breathing tanks that the fire department talks about, that should have a capital reserve fund, because it's a maintenance thing. You know, in 15 years, they're gonna be junk. They like to replace them all at once for all the reasons they spoke about. That makes great sense. If you wanted to put a few bucks aside to, as seed money, and I'm talking a small amount, not, I'm not talking 50 grand. I'd be in favor of that probably, but we do that already for studies and things, preparing to do projects. So, but I like, so I'm with you on that. But as far as this, this is a good idea, trying to work off a map like this, if you will, to get something so that people understand what your project is, and you have a lot of people investing into this, going this format. I don't know, and I know we have a few months, but I don't know, to get this together, we can do it for this coming town meeting. And so that's the only reason, because I'm willing to go forward, but I'd rather do it with, not with my fingers crossed only, but with all this kind of effort put into it. I think it'll have to be the following year. And it's not that it's not needed less than it was a few months ago. It's still needed terribly bad, but I think I kind of am thinking we should wait so that we can do this. I haven't read the whole thing, but it looks good on the surface. Looks really good.
Which is what the committee was going to look at in terms of preparing. Yes, Tom?
So there was a discussion with a potential CM where we saw this. There are a couple of us on the town council met with him. And this is what several months ago we tried to bring forward and say we wanted to set aside $25,000 to be able to pay a construction manager to get this job done. And the council decided they didn't want to do that. We talked at that time about going ahead with a committee to go ahead and do some of this on our own and try and bring it forward. And I was green with that, which is why I put the motion forward back in September. But I'm agreeing 100% with what you're saying now. I think we've lost the opportunity on it. We've had too much negativity coming out of this council, too much indecision. It's too late, and there's no funding for it to try and promote this kind of thing. And we really need to plan to do this full bore for real. But I think we're going to have to wait a year in order to be able to fully present this and bring it before the voters. So I agree that we don't have the time to delay, but I don't believe that putting $500,000 into a capital reserve fund is the right way to fund the project. I think we need to do our homework and get the project laid out correctly for the people. My concern is every year we wait is just going to get more expensive, 5% adder on construction cost if the economy continues to improve or more. And so I think at this point our best bet is to put it off until next year and come after it with a whole year's worth of energy and effort behind it so that we're not really crushing in the month of November and December to get this done.
Really, have an opinion? I'm trying to
That's
get
a loaded question.
one that you're always willing to do that.
You want to share with us?
At some point, we need to.
With all the comments that have been said, I agree.
With which one? With which one?
I agree
Waiting?
with Councilor Dwyer, I agree with Councilor
The
Koenig.
election's over, okay?
I agree with Councilor Dwyer, I agree with Councilor Koenig,
You
and I
talk-
agree with Councilor
But are you
Rawlings.
talking about doing it this year
I'm
or
thinking
waiting a
next year.
year?
It goes back to what I talked about a couple of weeks ago. You know, I'm thinking that the window is not big enough for us to be able to make the argument to the voters in this community. And there's very much a part of me of the whole three strikes you're out kind of mentality. And I would hate to go to bat a second time and take a strike two. Because then what you're going to be figuring out, what are you going to do on the payoff pitch? When is the payoff pitch? Is the payoff pitch going to be the next year, the following year? I agree with Councilor Koenig. I think the longer that we delay, I think we're just putting off the inevitable. But I think a year is reasonable. I think a year is very reasonable based on looking at this matrix that's been presented here and putting forth a full-throated campaign to people in town that we need this. And excuse me?
It was done before.
I understand.
Full throttle.
Full-throated. I said full-throated.
If I could just remind, and I don't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I yield the floor to Councilor Dwyer.
No, I want everybody never to forget how hard we did. And sometimes you just have to take it, and we won, but not a supermajority. You have to remember how hard everybody, from television to signs to meetings, I mean, we had it all, and we had a $3.5 million. It will never be close to that price again. It may be on the ballot next year, but it's going to be a year after that. We're talking 2018, be $5 million, be 4.5 at least. And all I'm asking is, don't be afraid. Put it on the ballot. Get another shot at it. And it's better information. If it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. We'll take what we have and make it better. If that's what's wrong with Plan B. But I think you wanted a decision. We wanted a debate. I wish I could urge you. I can already tell it won't fly. But I really wish you'd put it on the ballot and not be afraid of the answer.
Tom, we haven't heard from you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Bill. You weren't done.
I wasn't done, but that's
I'm
okay.
sorry. No,
No,
finish. You finish, then
I mean,
Tom.
I hate to open up Pandora's box, but the reason why a year kind of makes sense is, and it's something to be talked about, but I'm going to open up Pandora's box. We've got $600,000 sitting for a new fire station, and I know the city of Keene consolidated their highway department and their public safety department into one huge building. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they went about it.
I do.
Oh, okay. But the long and the short of it is we're talking about seed money. Okay, if we're really sincere about wanting to improve the highway garage, we've talked about it, and I hate to say it, we've talked about a fire station in this community. If we're going to have this conversation.
If you do a combo, you're talking $10 million, and that's $600,000 seed money alone. That's an engineering. That money becomes almost useless.
I don't disagree with you, but I almost feel like we need to have the conversation just to be over with and done with it. I really do. I mean, if
I should bring up that topic was brought up on a retreat a couple years ago, and we kind of made the set in stone that the highway department's never moving. That the
Correct.
Turkey Hill Road was a long-term decision, so the combo fire station, highway department, it doesn't work anymore. We kind of already decided a few years back to prioritize
can always
things,
come
and
back and-
and we said how Highway was gonna be standalone by itself on Turkey Hill. Just to remind, we
No,
forget,
you know,
I mean, we
I
talk
remember.
about so many different
I
things.
remember
sure.
the conversation. I'm just saying, you know,
Yeah.
we're, you know, if, in listening to everybody here tonight, and I get the sense that we're looking at, you know, 2016, then to me, it almost begs to have, you know, it almost begs to have the conversation.
But meanwhile, the building is in horrible shape. The guys are not having adequate restrooms, locker rooms, we know over the whole litany of things, so I don't have to go on.
Right,
So,
I agree.
and we may have to make decisions more immediately about farming out work and subcontracting work based on what we've discovered. I, for one, I'm not gonna put my head in the sand about that building over there. It's deplorable. I won't be the school board and have a superintendent working in her conditions. That's just deplorable
It's
over there.
horrible, Dan, it's horrible.
And yet, you know,
It's
they live
horrible.
with it every day, and they don't say a word about it. I got plenty to say about it. I can't do anything about it, but I can try and persuade you to do something about what's going on down there. And waiting another year to regroup. Thanks for all the work. You know, you know me. You've done an awesome job. Put it on the ballot. Let's get this thing over with.
Let's get Tom's opinion, so we can come to it. Look at, what does that look mean?
Well, this to me is nothing, okay? I've seen these before. I know what the process is, I know how long it takes, so to me, it's nothing. What I want is that spreadsheet that lays out what the expense is and what the potential expense is over the period of time that we're talking about. And I don't have that in front of me. You know, and I'm sorry, you know, I consider myself to be, you know, somebody who I'm visual. I gotta see the stuff in front of me. I gotta see the numbers in front of me so I can make the comparisons and ask the questions about what went into you know, what went into coming up with those numbers. I don't have it. Okay? I don't have it. And, you know, and it's the same thing with, it may be the same thing with some of the voters. They don't have that stuff in front of them either.
Which
About that whole
was
thing,
one of the things we
about that
talked
whole
about,
piece,
the visual
okay?
presentation.
Right.
Yeah. Okay? Because there's, you know,
You can't get any more visual than showing them the cost and how much on the tax rate it will be over several years. I mean, that was said. It was stated.
Yes,
They
it
don't need-
was,
They
but-
don't, not looking to be accountants. They don't want, need it any more deeper than that. They want that bottom line number. And we
But
gave
we
it,
said-
we gave it to them.
What we've said in reflection, we could have made it visually more clear, that's all. It is to us, because we spent a lot of time looking at the numbers.
I'm sure, I apologize for sounding defensive sometimes about
No,
this
but you
thing,
guys put a lot of work
we
into it.
did. And I've never apologized for saying, I thought we gave it everything we had. And I just don't want it to be squandered. But I have accepted reality. Supermajority is wicked tough to get. It really is. We could win it 3 years, the third time, be a majority, but not a supermajority. I don't think enough of us here at this table are actually accepting those real numbers. It's a huge threshold.
Which is
One that
why-
I predict will never be met. I'll say it,
Which-
I'll write out loud. I don't think it will ever pass that way.
What I'd like to do, because could I ask for a consensus? Are we all in agreement we don't want to do the capital reserve fund?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
that's off the table, great. So the other decision is, I think we're all involved with the bond, getting more specific data, Tom. I understand your need for that. But could we come to, do we want to consider this year or wait a year? That's what I'm hearing, two different. That seems to be the issue. Do we wait a year? So I'd like your opinion on that.
at this
Or do
point,
you
I still
need
think
that?
it's premature.
To make
Part of
that
our
decision?
responsibility is to look at everything that we have to deal with in a budget, and then make a choice as to what we're gonna propose and what we're not gonna propose. And to make that decision now, before we even have anything in front of us, other than what we got at the last meeting, which is our normal process, and it sets some of the stage for what we're gonna do, and gives us some of the assumptions that we're gonna have to deal with as we go forward, okay? I think that, I think it's premature.
So your suggestion would be what? Wait until January to make that determination?
Yeah.
I'm asking, really, yeah. So put this off until the budget season.
I think so. There's a lot of other things going on. Oh, by the way, you're not just gonna see the superintendent's office based on their discussion. Their 45-minute discussion last Monday night. They're talking between $225,000 and $450,000 to redo the track.
Heard that.
Okay. So, I mean, so it's not just that. It's just this other stuff that's just gonna keep piling up and piling up on both sides. And we're all gonna sit here wringing our hands about what we're gonna do. And yeah, I'm one of those that's doing it right now, but I'm just not prepared to make a decision now on that particular subject, because I don't have those numbers in front of me that I can look at and try to make a reasonable decision on it, okay? Whenever I've had to make a decision like this before, I've had those numbers in front of me. And when
Okay.
I've handled committees before where we're making proposals on capital projects, we had those numbers in front of us.
But even if you had numbers that you found acceptable, what about the question, do you want to see it back on the ballot?
That's
Just
I
make that leap with me that you have the numbers in front of you and you like them.
Today, I don't know. Because
were the
I don't know what we're gonna see over the next couple of months in terms of what we have to do on a budget and how we're gonna handle the budget process. And, I have a fairly good idea of some of the choices that we're gonna have to make. But there's a lot of things to change in that period of time.
Why would the numbers, I'm just trying to understand. We've already gone through a lot of the numbers already, and I understand your need for more detail. But generally speaking, there wouldn't be that much of a difference from the previous data that we had to now.
We haven't been given any kind of I feel that we
Yeah,
haven't been giving
okay.
any kind of a longitudinal look that takes a look at the construction cost, the potential construction cost inflation over the period of time that we're talking about, because we're talking about two different cycles here, 2018 or 2023, okay? And then how does that balance out against what we're looking at in terms of our continuing debt service between now and the expiration of those bonds, and what that impact is on the tax rate? So I can see those 2 or 3 or 4 layers in there as to what we're dealing with.
But we had those layers before, right?
No, we've been getting one layer of this and one layer of that.
No, the first time we put it on the ballot, we did. That's what I'm talking about.
No, we did not.
Not the detail you want.
No, we did not. We had what the
Okay.
bond was gonna cost us over
Right.
the life of the bond,
Right.
okay? But there was no comparison to what if you wait? What if you don't wait? What are we talking about in terms of the difference? Everybody was saying, well, wait till the bond gets retired, then you'll have more money. Well, no, we're not gonna have more money.
Nope. Well,
I understand what Councilor Mahan wants for detail. I can get that for us. We can talk about that. The decision does not have to be made tonight. It's pretty clear that, some want to push it off a year because of the matrix, and others want it to go back at it with some more information. We're doing a CIP next time around. We're doing a budget presentation to the council, the town manager's budget in December, and that will lay out everything going forward. During the CIP presentation, I can definitely have this information available. Now, construction versus pushing it off 1 year and things of that sort. For tonight, I was asked to look at
That's right. That's
what
right. You were.
a capital reserve fund would do versus bonding it straight outright on that, and we've made that decision that, the capital reserve is out. When it comes through, if at the CIP discussion in 2 weeks on the 20th, if it comes around that,
I won't either.
We're gonna have a short crew on the 20th. Mr. Mr. Keenan's gonna have to be the chairman.
You're not here either, right?
We might not be having a meeting on the 20th,
Let's discuss that at the.
but we'll have to
before we,
discuss that
Before we,
at adjourn tonight. But if that comes to be, we could do it on the 5th. It's just, we like to give you the CIP before we give you our budget presentation.
okay, so
on
that, how does that sound, everyone? First meeting in December, be specific information?
Or whenever we do the CIP.
Oh, the CIP. Yeah? Don't roll your eyes now. You rolling your eyes at him or me?
I'm just shaking my head, that's all I'm doing.
Okay, we all agree to that?
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. I feel like we've progressed a little bit. Okay,
Can I
there's
ask,
good, absolutely.
On the highway garage, can I ask Paul 2 questions, please? What is the payment on the 2018 bond?
2018 bond
Right.
that we have right now?
I'm not looking for the aggregate number, just what's the,
300,000.
That is, we have two. We have, the 2018 one is $303,000 will be in the budget for next year.
and what about the 2023 bond?
150.
That'll be $158,000 in budget next year for debt service.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with permission from this council, I would like to request that we move up new business number 2, advisory seat for trust fund management now, and we'll deal with the other stuff after.
Yep.
Come on up. This has to do with advisory fees for trust management submitted by trustees of trust funds, Chairman Chris Christensen, Town Council to consider authorizing the trustee of the trust funds to charge any expenses incurred in a contractual arrangement for the management of any capital reserve funds for which they have been granted custody pursuant to RSA 35 against the capital reserve funds involved. And now you're going to make sense of all that.
I
Go
hope
right
so.
ahead, Chris. Your backup information
yes.
was very clear.
I'm sorry?
Your backup information was very clear.
Oh, good, thank you.
Microphone.
For the benefit of people at home,
Microphone, push the
it's
button.
on, with the lights on.
Is it bright green?
Yeah.
Okay, keep talking.
Close enough then that it.
There it is.
Okay now?
Thank you.
Maybe it just wasn't close enough.
Okay.
So, just as an overview, there are 3 trustees, alphabetically, Jack Balcom, Chris Christensen, Bill Wilkes, and we're elected for rotating 3-year terms. And we manage capital reserve funds, permanent funds, and we annually, we set the investment policy for the town. Although for the towns, and that includes the capital reserve funds, we're pretty much limited in what we can do there, but nonetheless, that's what we're charged with doing. In this particular case, last year, House Bill 297 passed the legislature, and one of the provisions in there was that the trustees come to the governing body for authorization to pay management fees out of the income or charged against the particular capital reserve funds. That sounds a little bit more complicated than it really is. The reason this bill is here, and I did go up and testify on it when it first came up and worked with the subcommittee as well. The process started in the early 90s when Paul was involved in this, I think. The state created the public deposit investment pool, among other things. And that was a vehicle to invest community funds and earn a certain amount of income guaranteed funds, so to speak. That allowed the pool, that is the public deposit investment pool, the pool, to receive a management fee of 20 basis points. We were also, under that same law, allowed to pay management fees to a mutual fund company, management. In part because those fees are sort of entwined in the whole investment process. At that time, the law was silent on what you did if you had a bank manage your funds and whatever other management tools you might use, an investment advisor or a brokerage house or what have you. So it was just silent. So out of income, we paid the management fees. When I came on board to this job, the capital reserve funds were being managed by Merrill Lynch. 2 years ago, approximately, Bank of America, which owned Merrill Lynch, decided they were not going to be in the municipal funds business anymore. And we went through a process, and we are now using Cambridge Trust for our investment advisor for the capital reserve funds. And we pay them a management fee, 25 basis points. So it's all comparable money, but the law was silent. This allows what has been going on for years and years and years to continue to go on. And that's really what's happening. If you notice, for example, in the bill, I don't know how many of you read the full bill, but now it says you can do electronic record keeping. We've been filing our records electronically with the Department of Justice and
It gives you
Department
permission now.
of Revenue Administration. Now they're giving us permission to do it.
Right.
But that's what they wanted us to do. So much easier for them. And there's some other similar kinds of things in there that were kind of, as we do with a lot of bills or laws, catch up to what's really happening. And so that's what this is all about. I will say there are some towns who put a line item in their budget so they're not charging anything against the capital reserve funds, and then they pay it out of general funds, same cost. So the law or the bill specifies that the governing body authorize such. For most towns, that won't happen until next March, but for us, this is the first opportunity after the bill became effective last August. So here we are. You have a copy of the resolution.
Yep.
And in some cases, you're all familiar that bills or laws specify language for certain things. This bill did not do that, so they left it up to the towns to create the language, and Paul did the appropriate research, and so that's where the source of the language came from. We've been working very closely with his department of late, so that's been a good thing. That's it. The trustees would like you to pass the resolution.
Yes, Tom Kenny?
So Chris, thank you for coming and starting to explain that. What happens if we don't pass this resolution?
We'd have, the town is responsible for the expenses of the trustees. You'd have to pay it out.
And we have been for the last umpteen years? What would change from what we did last year?
Instead of paying it out of income, you'd have to pay it out of the general fund.
Did we pay it out of income last year?
Yes.
Why would we not keep doing that?
Because the law changed that says now you have to authorize doing that. Okay, I'm missing something.
I need some help there, understanding what's
Okay,
different
I get
between last year and this year. You did it anyway last year. Now,
Right, and the year
because the
before that,
law
and the year
says you
before
can
that.
do it, you have to get it authorized to do it?
Yes.
Otherwise, what? They haul you down to jail or something, or slap your hand, or what happens if we don't authorize that?
I thought it was more of a request.
I'm being told to pass this resolution. I just want to know why I need to pass the resolution. So
Paul, you seem to have a response.
Yeah, there are
Pick
two.
up on that, Paul?
There's two ways that they can kind of see if we have this. First of all, the auditors are going to be asking to see this resolution. And if they don't see this resolution, they're going to be asking Chris to see the bill for us to pay it. And if not, they could hit us on our audit and give us a management letter and make that material misstatement like we've had in years past with the trust funds and put it on that aspect of it. The other thing that could happen is that the Attorney General who oversees these trust funds could come in and come after the town.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. One other question. There's specific language in here that if we pass this resolution, we may not rescind it for 5 years. Can you
Right.
explain what's the background to that? Why would they make that kind of a statement or requirement in that law?
Well, I can't say why it's 5 years instead of 10 or some other number.
Or 2,
Or two, well, but part of the rationale there was that it's difficult from a management point of view. I could use stronger words, I guess, but let's just say it's difficult from a management point of view to come back every March and not know, if for most towns, March, not know how you're going to be managing your funds if this bank is going to want to, or management company is going to want to do this or not do that. Do you have to change management companies every year because you don't know how you're going to be paying them? So it's to take some of the uncertainty out of it, to make it a better business relationship between the management company and the trustees or the town.
I mean, I can understand that partially, but I have a hard time understanding why we had to legislate that in as a time period. I mean, it's there until rescinded, but you may not rescind for 5 years. Just sounds like they're throwing some handcuffs on, and I'm not sure I understand the valuable purpose in doing that. I was hoping somewhere along the discussion there would have been something that clarified that a little bit. Somebody put that in with intent.
This went through Municipal and County Government Committee, and I'm going to say that I wasn't there for that particular part of the discussion. And other than what I've just said to you, because I know that was part of it, but anything beyond that, I can't speak to why the committee picked a 5-year period, other than to say we need some stability in the contract. Now, you can still change. You can change management companies at any time. That's
Right.
not a problem. It's
Right.
just how you pay them so that you have that
But they get
certainty
paid
of
regardless.
how you're
so
going to
what-
operate.
What difference do they care? They get paid whether you pay it out of the fund or whether you pay it out of the general fund. I don't understand why the management
If you're
company
going to pay
would
it
care
out of the
less.
general fund and there's no line item in the budget that year, and you haven't authorized the trustees to pay it, then the things that Paul brought up could occur because there's no method for paying.
Okay.
First of all, Dan, first.
I'm against it because of a few reasons, not a lot, but one, I just thought the bill itself was sloppy. 2, the old way was working fine. We have more control. At least we see a bill.
We're not allowed to do the old way. The old way, they charged it anyway.
Yeah, but the old way, we're still, if we don't pass this tonight, we still get a bill. We see what the management cost is. If we pass this, then we no longer see it. So it's-
Actually, can I interrupt? You don't see a
See it
bill.
now.
we see the charge.
They report income to us as net,
And
and
then
it's a footnote
then we
on the
find out
bottom
what
of
the charge was.
Nope.
Yes, yeah,
'Cause
because that's a separate line item on
What's
the
it?
bottom of the monthly report.
How can I pay a bill if I can't see what the cost is, to write down the amount?
Same way you pay a bill to your mutual fund management company.
I see the bill, I see what they're charging in fees.
Well, they'll
Right,
still
and,
send that
and,
bill
and you
in.
see the same thing here.
So what did I
It's just
say that was wrong?
The payment's gonna come out of the
All right,
fund.
let me
instead of
restate it so that you can debate me. When we see the bill, when we see the charges, we pay.
Not
so
today, we don't.
So how do we
Or
pay,
not last
how do we
year.
pay the bill?
Through the trust.
They,
Last year it
they
gets
give
taken
you
out.
the income
That's it.
net of the fee.
Through the trustees, but we don't see what the bill was?
No, he's saying that they pull the fees out of the money that they put into our account. So there's no bill for it, it's automatically taken out. I
But
think
what's
it's,
taken out, we can assume is the.
well, they
is the
know,
bill.
because it's a quarter of a
And
point,
that'll
I
still
think
be
is.
there.
Okay, all right.
And there's a line in their bookkeeping paperwork, whatever, that says what it is, but we don't get a bill for it.
just it's automatically.
Again, if it, was it broken before? I'm kind of with the Tom theory here. It seems to have been working for decades a certain way,
Well,
and now all of a sudden, last year, the legislators said, "Oh, we got something new to do different now."
Paul, we might be able to help.
Well, technically, if the law is silent on an issue,
You're not allowed.
you're not allowed.
But we've
For
been doing it
instance, the
anyway.
law is silent on whether or not the town clerk could accept credit cards in the credit card portion of an RSA. We're not allowed to accept credit cards even though it's silent. You have to be given permission by the RSAs in the legislation,
The legislature has to give you
permission to do something.
Okay.
And that's why this is coming into effect. The reason for 5 years is because of what Chris said. They didn't want it 1 year this way, 1 year that way, and then one council or board of selectmen saying, oh, I'm writing it out of the budget. Too bad, so sad, you're not getting your management fee now. So they didn't want people flipping
Protect the
back
whims.
and forth and back and forth.
Forms of us.
So they said, okay, 5 years.
So they
The
just
gentleman who
modify
helped
what's already
draft this bill is in the municipal arena to do investing for capital reserve funds. He helped draft this bill. That was a concession. He wanted it to say indefinitely. They kind of agreed on 5-year term on this and to see how things are going.
So I understand this is just codifying what's already done.
That's correct, for the most.
In this town,
But if we-
yes.
But if we don't codify it, it comes off of our bottom line. It doesn't come out of their bottom line, it comes
Right.
out of our bottom line. That's the rub.
Well,
It
technically, it
wasn't
comes
coming
out of your bottom line
Anyway.
anyway.
Oh, I understand, it's just accounting wise.
Accounting wise, you'll
Accounting-wise.
actually,
It's
it's,
the left pocket instead of the right.
right,
That's exactly correct, Tom.
right. You'll get more interest here in your capital reserve funds of $10, but you'll be taking $10 out of your operating budget.
What's the
How much
pleasure?
money are we talking about?
Chris,
Yeah, what's,
on him.
That's a good question. I'd have to do some calculations here. One of the other, and pardon me, I'm going to try and get to your answer, but remember that we manage funds for the school district and the village district as well as the town. And
Remember, which
in
is
some
which.
instances, I understand those towns that have been paying those fees out of their general fund. I don't know if they're charging it back to the MVD. Maybe they don't have an MVD, or the school district. So that adds a layer of complication. So I'd have to sit with a calculator to say what 25
It's
basis.
$5 to $7 grand a year.
Something like
ballpark.
that.
but that includes funds for the school district and the MVD.
Yes.
I mean, do we have 10 million in town funds
No, we have
or 10 million total?
roughly 5 million in town, 3 million in school, and less than that at the MVD.
We're at around 10 million total.
Right, 10 million total,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Total.
Cumulative,
Yeah.
and 5 in permanent funds. See here.
Well, for what it's worth, I just soon sign the darn thing and go forward with it and have it come out of the management, have the management fees come out of the capital reserve funds. But I wanted to better understand why it was brought about and what was the theory and thought behind. I still think 5 years is silly, but I don't think we're given much choice in that matter at this time. Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, I move that the town council hereby authorize the trustees of the trust funds to charge any expenses incurred in a contractual arrangement for the management of any capital reserve funds for which they have been granted custody pursuant to RSA 35:9-a, Roman numeral 2, against the capital reserve funds involved. Such authority shall remain in effect until rescinded by the town council. And no vote by the town council to rescind such authority shall occur within 5 years of the date of this original authorization.
Seconded.
Motion made by Councilor Mahan, seconded by Councilor Boyd. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody say nay? Nay by Councilor Dwyer. The vote is 6, I'm sorry, 5. 1-0. You're all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You might want to make it clear for the record that you added in the specific RSA numbers and not the numbers that,
Right.
that Paul had in his resolution, just for when they go to put the minutes and resolutions together.
Okay, the next items, little housekeeping explanation. If you're looking at the original agenda, we are going to be dealing with number 4 first. The repurchase of tax deeded property. I have found out that that has to be done first. Then we will follow it with a property tax deed reconveyance. Okay? The other thing that needs to be explained is the backup information for the reconveyance was inadvertently put under or behind the repurchase. And that's why your corrected copies were waiting for you when you came in. So just to summarize, we're going to deal with repurchase of tax deeded property first, make a decision on that. Then we will go to the deed issues. Any questions about that housekeeping? Okay. So let's start with repurchase of tax deeded property. Paul, would you like to introduce this?
Yeah, at the October 23rd, the council took a vote to have the current homeowner of 6A-2, 161 tax map parcel buy back the property for back taxes and interest and fees according to 8080 Roman numeral 3 and Article 66-1 of the town code. To make it clearer, the attorney asked us to come back and add the word penalty in the motion, and put the dollar amount of $60,000 to make that clear to both the public and the gentleman who's repurchasing the property. And the attorney asked us for a clarification vote, that it comes back in front of the council for that clarification vote.
As opposed to what did it say before?
It didn't give the dollar amount,
I got the minutes.
and it didn't give the word. It didn't have the word penalty in there.
You're forcing me to think back and now
This-
try
this
and
motion
interpret
doesn't have the word
this.
penalty either.
I don't have that.
It was the,
Oh, the additional one.
So what are we supposed to use?
Again, it's under the new packet that you received this evening.
There's different wording from the new package?
Is this it?
No, this isn't it. This is it. If this is it, this is no different than what I've got in here.
Exact same thing.
Yeah.
Memo did not change. It's the agenda on the agenda sheet. This agenda right here, your main agenda that was amended.
This is the amended one. Tell us what words to use. This is the one that I just received.
That doesn't have anything to do with penalty. I don't see penalty written in it.
It's the same exact
It
thing,
just
Madam
has
Chair.
a dollar amount. I think that's all they're really driving for is the dollar.
And the word penalty.
But that's not in here.
But it's not in that. The motion would be the town council authorized the approval of the resale of tax map parcel 6A-2 /161 for $60,000 for back taxes, interest and penalties and fees as required pursuant to RSA 80:80 Roman numeral 3 and Article 66-1 of the Merrimack Town Code.
So moved.
Okay, we have a first by
Sufficiently seconded.
sufficiently seconded. Okay, so, motion by,
Tom, seconded
I
by
know.
Tom.
going
I didn't say
Counselor-
anything.
Oh, I thought
Counselor
It was that side of the
Koenig
room.
And seconded by Counselor Boyd. Thank you. Motion made by Counselor Koenig, seconded by Counselor Boyd. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, 6-0-0. Okay, now we're going to deal with the deeding issue. And we have two separate motions we have to have. One has to do with the, and I have my little note, let me find it. One has to do with the 2003 corrective deed, and the second one has to do with the 2014 reconveyance deed, also known
Correct.
as a quitclaim.
Correct.
So we need two different motions. And I have them written out if you'd like me to.
That would be most helpful.
Madam Chair, before, the reason being is why you have these motions is because in 2003, this property was also underneath tax lien, we took it for taxes, and the owner came in and paid the bill. It was in a trust at that time.
And
What
was it
happened is when
individual?
we did the deed back to them, we did it directly to the trustee and not back to the trust. So in order for this person to sell
Well, it wasn't
property,
even the trustee, it was to the individual.
individual, it wasn't even
Not-
to the trustee, it was to
Right,
an
to the
individual.
individual.
And in order to clear up all the deeds on this property so that he can move forward potential selling a property, this needs to be done in order to get everything in the proper buckets, the deed matching the will.
Right. So, move to issue a 2003 corrective deed which clarifies that the property is reconveyed to the trustee of the trust on tax deeded property, tax map, parcel 6A-2/161.
So moved.
Second.
So that's Counselor Boyd, Counselor Mahan, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, against, 600. And the second would be, move to issue the current 2014 reconveyance deed to the successor trustee of the trust of the tax map, on tax deeded property, tax map parcel 6A-2/161.
So moved.
Second.
Counselor Boyd, Counselor Mahan, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against, 600. And I have signatures that will need to be done before everyone leaves tonight. Okay,
Move to approve the minutes of October 23rd.
Seconded with the following modifications.
Mahan and Boyd. Motion made by Mahan, seconded by Counselor Boyd, with following changes. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, on page 9, lines 24,
You want to
25, and 47. It has language in here that says workers' compensation has a not-to-exceed amount of 9%. Do we want to consider putting quotes around not-to-exceed amount, just so that it differentiates how it reads, so that people understand it?
Here, I'll sign it down the other end.
Yes.
Thank
wanna
you.
do that.
We do want to do that.
Go ahead.
No, did you want, I'm sorry, on page 9, Madam Chair.
Sorry, I was
That's okay.
otherwise.
Lines 24, 25, and 47, there's language in there that reads not to exceed amount, and I'm suggesting that we put quotation marks around that phrase so that it flows better when reading.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you. Page 10, on lines 7, 12, and 13. I can go either way on this. There's a dollar sign with 11 cents. It doesn't specifically use the cent sign or spell out the word cents.
Well, it should be 0.11.
.11. So line number 7 should have $0.0.11.
Bless you.
Is that what you're saying, Tom?
Yes.
And so the same should be true for
Line 12.
line 12. It should be $0.17.
Line 13.
And the same for line 13, $0.01.
And that's
Thank
all
you.
I had.
Thank you. Any other corrections? Okay, motion has been made with corrections. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay, nay, 600. Okay, comments from the press. Don't all run up here at once. Comments from the public. Comments from the council. Yes, Bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to remind members of the Merrimack community that next Tuesday on Veterans Day from 2 to 7 at St. James Methodist Church, it's Brandon Snell's annual blood drive. I know Councilor Rothhaus usually goes to that particular event. So I look forward to seeing people supporting Brendan and his cause to collect blood on behalf of the American Red Cross. And it's Tuesday, Veterans Day, November 11th, at St. James Methodist Church from 2 to 7. Secondly, Chief Courier's son, Brandon Courier, he's a senior at New England College up in Henniker. Their soccer team is in the NCAA playoffs, Division II, I believe. Their conference is the North Atlantic Conference, and he was named the Defensive Player of the Year. And I thought that was a pretty good accolade for a student athlete. So my congratulations to Chief Curry and his wife, and obviously to Brandon for being such a stalwart on the defensive side of the ball. Thirdly, the Merrimack Cardinals Pee Wee football team is in the playoffs. They're vying for a chance to go to the finals. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the Cardinals. They have a good game this weekend. Their cheering squad is actually going to be out and about raising money for their competition down in Florida. So you'll probably see them either at Shaw's or at one of the other establishments in town. And lastly, I want to give a big shout out to the Lady Tomahawks girls volleyball team. Undefeated season on the line this Saturday at the Pink. They're in the finals at Pinkerton Academy. So I wish the Lady Tomahawks a lot of luck, and hopefully they'll have better success than Bill Belichick and Tom Brady back in 2008, I want to say. So good luck, girls. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilor Mahan.
Yes, I would like to remind everyone of Veterans Day. There will be a ceremony in the center of town at 11 o'clock. The Veterans organizations always organize the event and the remembrance. And in recent years, it has been very well attended, and I hope to see everyone there. I announced earlier in the meeting that I would not be here for the meeting on the 20th, and the reason for that is that I am also the chairman of the New Hampshire Rail Transit Authority Board, and on the 20th in the National Library, the consultant and the New Hampshire Department of Transportation will be presenting the final draft report of the New Hampshire Capital Corridor Rail and Transit Alternatives Analysis, which is a study that's been going on for the last year and a half at the cost of about $4.2 million. This will hopefully demonstrate is supposed to present the information as to the viability of the resumption of commuter service between Boston and Manchester.
Very good. Anything else? Tom Koenig?
I want to thank the voters for coming out Tuesday. With over 10,000 people coming to the polls, it was an important election. You guys that did come out, I applaud you. Those that didn't, you know who you are and where you are. But I also want to throw the gauntlet down and suggest that at the town meetings, wouldn't it be nice if we could even begin to think about 10,000 voters coming out and helping us to understand where the people want us to be. So keep in mind that it's a civic duty and a responsibility to get out and vote, and we'll always be doing our best to make it as easy as possible.
Anyone else? Yes, Dan Dwyer.
On Tom's note about the high school, I think we got a lot of kinks worked out. I would have asked people to be a little bit more patient too. It gets better and better as we seem to do things. Many of you there were for many more hours than I. We are listening to comments from people, and the traffic I think was better. The grumblings that I will admit, maybe a dozen people were complaining, and I would just ask you that, waiting for 10 minutes in line in your car, may be the price to vote, but it seems to be the best situation for our town. There's no other place that we can put so many people. There isn't another church or another building that we can go to, so this seems to be the solution that works for us. Yes, it's the largest polling place in America, and so I think if that stays firm, then we'll make it better. So anything that anybody wanted to say, please call our town manager, and we listen to some suggestions. But we're it's there to stay, I can say, for the most part, and we'll try and make it better. Thanks.
All set. The only thing I wanted to say is to, again, back up what you've already said, but make an addition. I want to give my compliments to the town moderator, Lynn Christensen, and all of the volunteer polling people, the hours they put in, and it was a great thing to see all day, constant movement. I also wanted to make a point of saying that we have recognized that we have to tweak the handicapped accessibility. So that is definitely going to be looked at. I mean, it's better, but it needs to be a little bit more visible. I've got some ideas. I've already spoken to Lynn about some possibilities for future to make it even more accessible. So those complaints, concerns have been heard, and those are the kind of things, if you can think of things we should do better, just like Dan said, please let us know. But thank you all for showing up. It was good to see.
Good show.
Good to see. Okay, anything else? Motion, Paul?
Just hearing around the table, we might not have a quorum for the 20th.
Do we want to discuss? Well, I'm not going to be here on the 20th.
I don't.
Neither is Bill. So there's three.
If all four of us don't show up, then we won't have a quorum.
Right.
So why don't we double check with Lon and see, is that the three of you going to be here as far as you know?
I'm here.
That's my plan.
So we'll check with Lon.
Okay, we'll check with Lon.
And if there's a problem, then we'll have to talk about a different time.
Right.
Four of us only, I'll feel very important.
Defer to.
And Tom's going to have the meeting. And
Tom,
you can't make
okay.
big decisions without it.
That was my next question. Tom's the one with the gavel.
Where is that
Yeah.
gavel?
Per the charter.
Per charter, that's
Per
right.
charter.
If
'Cause
the
he's
chair
the
and
rep
vice
to
chair are not able to preside at the meeting, then the planning board representative is the one that's tasked with presiding at the meeting.
So that's Tom. He looks very happy about that. Look, did you see the grin?
Well,
He has plans, you know. I think there's a little conspiracy going on around
The
here.
conspiracy said any Tom on a council.
Okay, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Councilor Mahon, Councilor Boyd, all those in favor?
Aye.
600. Thank you and good evening, Merrimack.